they are crafty and they are secretive.
Yeah.
So I would not be surprised. We show up to the first race at the Bobby Morley Memorial, and here pulls in a trailer, and we're all sitting there going, "Why the heck is a late model here?"
Yeah. And that's you're right. You're going to see that. You're going to see guys with late model haulers, and I mean, this thing has just absolutely exploded into something big. And you want to talk about something good for the racing community here in the Northwest? I think, and I've said it 100,000 times on this show, dollar for dollar, the street stocks provide the best racing for race fans to watch. I mean, just as a race fan sitting in the stands watching the races, the street stocks, I think, put on the best show. Now, no, they're not the big, loud, nasty, fast, late models or the modifieds, but the quality of what the drivers or the fans see as the racing, I don't think you can beat that. Now to go as a traveling series on dirt and asphalt tracks,
this is going to be so much fun.
It's going
for
to be
us.
huge.
I can imagine being just a fan following the show.
Exactly. I mean, the three of us grew up, kind of grew up at the track, but in the pits, really. We all three of us grew up in the pits. Josh actually came on board with Extreme after, one night of watching the races?
I think I was there. Yeah, I grew up watching races, and I think what sparked my interest being on the fire department and sitting there with a buddy, and all of a sudden I'm like, man, that looks like a cool deal, Extreme Fire and Rescue. Walked down, talked to Doug and Tony, and they're like, hey, come back to camp. And I was hooked after that. I mean, it's been an ongoing thing since then.
I remember seeing Josh down there going, whoa, who hired the giant? Was this who needs a tow truck when he got Josh around?
Oh, I know.
Yeah, and it all comes down to just being any part of the racing.
Exactly.
That's where I'm at right now. I've been with NASCAR. I've been around myself, but just being any part of the racing is just excitement to me.
Exactly.
It is. It's cool.
I live for it.
And you look at the racing world, and we all have a piece of the puzzle. And without each one of us doing what we do, this whole thing we call racing isn't what it is. From flagman Jeremy Means to drivers like the top drivers like Maya and everybody in the top divisions, to the fire safety team, to announcers. It takes all of
a
us,
lot of people,
to the sponsors,
the most importantly, the sponsors.
The sponsors. I mean, you look at it. If racing didn't have the sponsorship, and you saw just cars running around with a duct tape number on the side of it,
like it used to be,
the old school styles, what would racing be?
It wouldn't grow to what it has become. That's no doubt.
We're huge. I mean,
that's a given.
So it's going to be fun. I mean, the Iron Giant Series coming to 8 different tracks, dirt and asphalt.
That's the one race I think people are probably anticipating the most, other than the Iron Giant finale at Willamette.
Yeah,
that race at Douglas County Speedway in Roseburg kind of has everybody going, how's that going to do? How are we going to do that? How's this going to work? They're all pumped up about it, and it's going to be a different deal.
It's going to be a good show.
Absolutely.
Regardless, it's going to be a good show.
It's going to, and you're going to see the guys. You're going to see the guys from the Portland area that ran at Portland Speedway back when you were there, Warren.
Yep.
Those are the guys that are really looking forward to getting on that track.
Yeah. But some of those late models they run at Willamette are old Portland Speedway cars.
Yeah, super sport cars. That's true.
Yeah.
I mean, we've got cars even in the sportsman class that are
absolutely
old. The Marsons and
the
those
Monte
guys.
Carlos.
Yeah.
We're going to have some fun with it.
Yep.
It's going to be a neat deal to see. There's no doubt about that.
I want to see what happens at Douglas County. I'm also wanting to see probably the 2 races outside of those that we've already talked about that I'm looking forward to watching and calling are going to be Madras and River City when the street stocks take on the sports.
That's going to be fun to watch too.
I mean,
because really, I mean, you look at those cars and they look so different, but you look at their lap times. There's not a lot of difference between those 2 cars.
It's going to be interesting to see what happens. I mean, you're talking about an OEM style suspension versus a tube chassis.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to be fun to watch.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm really the talent that the Iron Giant Series is bringing to these racetracks and to the race fans. Bring it on. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, it's gonna be.
Well, that's the thing. You got a lot of drivers are interested in it and they're excited about it. But look what the fans did last year at Willamette Speedway. I mean, all the money they donated to for the purse at the end. That just shows how the fans are involved, and it's just gonna. This is gonna be so much fun.
What's to say that's not going to happen again?
Oh,
I mean, who knows?
Very-
we could
very
see
good
that. We
point.
could see that happen at Wallbanger. We could see that happen at the Iron Giant. We could see that happen at Douglas County with all those crazy asphalt fans going, "Hey, the dirt cars are here. This is
Yeah.
a hell of a show. Let's
Yeah.
play. Let's have some fun with
yeah.
it."
I have
Yeah,
got
you
to
never
say,
know.
I have never seen anything like that. The Iron Giant at Willamette last year. I
That-
have never seen race fans do what they did that
I
night.
don't think I have either. I never have. I know I haven't.
It's unheard of.
Yeah.
You know, and the thing about it was taking those donations, while we're trying to raffle off doors for Shriners Hospital and, we're doing all this stuff and all this money was flowing around. It was crazy. It was crazy because I have never seen it like that. And every time somebody handed us the money, where do you want it to go? Give it to the winner. It was a winner-take-all type deal. Over $2,000 raised from the stands that went into the winner's pocket.
And that wasn't even promoting and asking for it. That was fans coming up handing you $100 bills and
Yeah.
and going here to the winner.
You want to know what's funny about that whole deal? And you look back, how that whole thing started. I'm in the booth. We're getting, we're talking. We're under intermission, and Sandy comes up and goes, "Hey, there's some guys down here that want to talk to you. They want to donate some money towards the purse." I'm doing an interview. I was doing an interview with Chris Sign at the time. I said, "All right, come on, Chris, let's go." I grab a mic. We go down to the VIP box. The first people that donated money were the Radiator Supply House.
Really?
Kyle Yak's sponsor. They put up $500.
And one of the sponsors of Extreme Fire and Rescue.
Right.
RSH is all over that racetrack.
Right.
Yeah, it is.
So from there, it was $100 here, $100 there, and it just kept coming. Little kids walking up. I got $3. I mean, it was so crazy. And who walked out there with the money? Kyle Yak.
Oh, yeah.
His sponsor put up the first bit, and from there it was just, and there was people visiting Willamette Speedway for the first time that were from Nevada that put up $100.
Yeah.
$100 to the winner. $100 to the winner.
That'd be way cool to see that again, but you can't plan something like that. That was
No, you can't.
It gives me chicken skin just to think about it, just everybody's so involved and wanting to be part of it.
Well, and for me, when that whole thing was done, Sandy and I were talking, and I said, I got to tell you, this is something that I'm trying to understand what was going on. Why, and I might be completely wrong, but that particular night was the 3-year anniversary of the passing of my dad. Now, Warren knew my dad. My dad loved to gamble. He was a gambling machine. He loved it. It was his form of entertainment other than racing. And I'll tell you right now, with him, it was checkers or wreckers, winner take all, or go home broke. And that night, I'm kind of going, okay, Dad, I see what you're doing here. I mean, it was just happened to be on that night. And
Yeah.
it hit home for me a little bit. I got a little teary eyed
yeah.
afterwards, but it was definitely something my dad would have done had he been a race promoter. That's exactly what would have happened. It would have been a winner take all type
Yep.
deal, and it was cool. That was a neat deal. And the Iron Giant is just, I mean, if that's what this whole series is going to be, and I'm not saying the fans give him money. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about just the excitement, the racing alone that night, the finish.
Oh,
you
yeah.
can't script a finish like that.
Nope.
No, you can't. And that finish. Oh boy.
Oh man,
That night is going to be hard to match.
As long as you live, that night will be hard to match.
Yep.
It's one of those things that sets a bar so high. That's hard to beat.
The fan involvement in it is the cool part, to see that people just get involved and interested in the entire deal.
Right. And that's what I'm talking about when I talk about the street stocks put on the best show. That right there will show you what those fans think about the street stocks, because it wasn't the late models walking out there with $5,000 for the winner. I mean, as cool as the late models are, those street stocks are something fans relate to. They look at them and say, oh, there's a 69 Chevelle, there's a 71 Camaro, they look at those cars and they know what they are.
Exactly.
You look at a late model, and say you're a race fan at the racetrack for the first time. You walk in, and Rob May and Darren Koffel and Brian Cronk go flying down the front stretch in qualifying. You look at those, and your first thought is, what the hell is that thing?
Well, that's the way I was. Before I got involved in racing, I worked for one of the auto parts houses here in town, and we were a sponsor of Russ Sell's program. I went down to Russ's shop one night after work to go drop off our sponsorship with my manager and one of my other coworkers. And I walk in the race shop, and I'm sitting there staring at Russ's late model, and I go, what the hell is that thing?
Yeah.
He goes, that's a late model. And I go, oh, is that a late model? He goes, no, it's a modified. I'm going, oh, I know jack about this. I need to get out to the track. And he goes, yeah, you do. Get out here. Next
And
thing you know,
that's race fans that don't know. I mean, that's the typical reaction. You're looking at something that's big and boxy. And I mean, remember the old days? You weren't there when we had the old days with the sideboards and the top and
Oh, man.
wedge noses, and fans would walk in, and even here at the mall show years ago, the general public had no idea what they were looking at, other than it just looked completely wicked and fast.
Well, I was like a fish out of water when we went to Bakersfield this year. I'm like, okay, somebody explain to me the difference between an A mod and a B mod.
Right.
I mean, it's pretty obvious once I've been explained, but that might be something you want to explain to the fans when we get out there this season is the difference in those. And
Exactly.
I don't. You do a great job announcing, and the crowd loves to hear your input. So.
and that's the thing is the average person doesn't know the difference between an A mod and a B mod
I
until you start.
It's the little things you got to look at.
Yeah.
It really is the little things, and
the C post and the spoilers.
And the spoiler, yeah.
Yeah,
it's-
it really unless you're underneath the car like I was for 4 years, you don't understand the difference. But when you get down there and it's like, okay, you're
There's a
talking
big
this,
difference.
it's
Yeah.
huge.
Yeah.
A B mod is so much different than an A mod.
Yeah.
It's
Well, and you got a 2-barrel carburetor they have to run, and
certain motor package,
yeah,
suspension.
Yeah.
they look
suspension
very
limitations.
similar, but those cars are worlds apart.
And unless you're looking at a sheet of lap times, you don't know what's an A mod and what's a B mod just by staring at it.
And sometimes the lap times don't even tell you that.
Yeah. Well, that's
true.
and Warren brings up a good point, because even last year when we had the Moxie speed trap set up there on the backstretch,
Right.
Warren had the radar gun out. There were nights where the street stocks on their best lap were only about 10 miles an hour slower than the fastest late model.
Yep.
Now, again, that's on a good racetrack. That was early in the season, and the track was good, but 10 miles an hour isn't a big difference. But when you're watching it, it's a huge difference.
Yeah.
Well,
Well,
I mean,
And that's the thing when you look at numbers versus what you are actually seeing and everything else. Is that track conditions? Is that driver? I mean, what do we have? What's the total package here? I mean, you can't. It's the totality of the circumstances.
well, a lot of that too. I will give that to track conditions. There was a lot of traction in the car for those, the street stocks to grab a hold of with the slicks. But
That was a pretty good track that night.
yeah, and you're watching it physically. It looks like 40 miles an hour. The late models, because it's a mental thing. It's psychology. It's the the brain's hearing this noise and the streaks of the color, and the car's just
The
hunkered down
horsepower,
and digging
yeah.
in, and
you get those cars to set, and it's just
they're coming in sideways, and you're hearing it, and they come out of the
About
turns.
an inch off the wall.
Yeah, and then they cross the stripe, and you see their lap time, and then the next car, the slowest class that night was only maybe a second and a half, 2 seconds off of them. I mean, it was a crazy thing to watch, and I remember I made a post last year about that. You guys remember that?
yes, I do.
Do you remember how much negativity I got on that post?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I'm not gonna lie. I think I was one of the ones that blasted you.
It was that wasn't what I was intending to do. I was just intending to say, hey, look, this is how competitive these cars are.
Exactly, and that's the thing. Anytime you start talking about the comparison of the classes, you've got to watch. It's going to stir some pot. It's going to stir the pot, ruffle a few feathers. But at the same time, you start talking the totality of the circumstances, track conditions. They're the late models, first ones out, and they've got a greasy track to qualify on versus with those D55s, the wide D55s, are they going to burn up that grease and land nice, hammered down, hooked up track for the street stocks that are next? I mean, what do you have going on here? And that's one thing that I've always watched, when I was crew chiefing, is what's the track doing? How are we going to adjust the car, and how are we going to get it to its maximum potential, so we can set a track record?
Well, and I know that when I was with David Hawks, back when we were on the outlaw cars, the big wide cars with basically no rules. You couldn't have a sprint car wing or injection or nitro, and there was a weight rule. I think that was pretty much the weight the rules on the cars back then. I would sit there in line and watch the track. If we were deep in the field for qualifying, Jake and I would watch that track really, really close, and we would set air pressures accordingly to what the track was doing, and that makes a big difference. Something else I wanted to talk about, just that brought up a memory of, we would run bleeders on the wheels and tires, bleeder valves. So when that tire got, we'd set it down to 6.5 or whatever on that
Those
corner.
things are so unreliable.
Well, I'll tell you, they worked for us.
We tried them at Portland Speedway one time.
I think there's a lot more heat involved, though, on the asphalt.
Yeah, we 86 them.
So we ran them for years, and they never really had an issue with them. But what's nice is
Do
you
they-
set that pressure at 6.5, and let's say it gets to 6.5, and you want to keep it there for the feature. When it gets there, it opens that valve, and that thing starts bleeding off air.
Right.
It keeps the